Zettel für die lange Weg. 2 Flaschen Whisky für die Zeit. Und ich date gern habe, du bist dabei. Maria geht, fahrt mal weg, ist weit. Wann ich geh, ich werd dir fehlen, wann ich geh. Du sehst nicht, was ich mach, du sehst nicht, wie ich lach. Ich werd dir fehlen, du watsch sehen. Hab kriegt mein Zettel für den langen Weg. Du schönste, als mir finden kann. Es hat Maria und Dale ganz wunderbar. Hass ich dir den weißen Dank. Wann ich geh, ich werd dir fehlen, wann ich geh. Du sehst nicht, was ich mach, du sehst nicht, wie ich lach. Ich werd dir fehlen, du watsch sehen.
Well, Gouda Obit, Liebe Light, welcome, dear friends, Dutchies out there all around. A couple of quick announcements. I just realized that for whatever reason, the live stream is not streaming to our Facebook page. Something must be on Facebook's end. So I just put a message on the Facebook page saying, hey, you can't watch the show, so come over to the YouTube channel. Hopefully people will get that message and migrate over to the YouTube channel. Don't know what's up with Facebook tonight, but it is what it is. Some things we can control, some things we can't control. Also, one other announcement I guess I should make is that I don't know where you are, wherever you're watching this from, but here in north central Pennsylvania, where I am, there's been a couple lines of strong thunderstorms that have gone through tonight, and there's a couple more coming. So in the event that all of a sudden I go black, that means that I lost my electricity. We're hoping and praying that these storms kind of hold off until the show's over, but you just never know. It's been a crazy summer here where I live. Tons of rain and tons of storms. Just like seems like every time you turn around, there's another storm or another downpour. So, all right, there were the 2 announcements I needed to make. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And I'm glad that you are joining us. If this is the 85th time that you're joining us, well, welcome to you too. You're joining us on the YouTube channel, so please put in the comment section where you're joining us from so I can give you guys some shout outs, please. And some people have already checked in. We got Norman, our good friend Norman, who's staying up after midnight in Germany, saying cheers from Steinbach am Glan. Good to see you, Norman. Good to see you. And we have the Bissbessers from Fleetwood. Good to have you with us as you join us every month. Bachfeuer, Ed Cohn, aus dem Vereinigten Staat, out of the United States. Good to have you with us. We have our good friend Dolly Moyer from beautiful Fleetwood in Berks County. Oh, they're coming in now. Kayan Janukowski, Gouda Obit from Charleston, South Carolina. We got the southern states starting to check in. That's great. Kathy Kroll, Gouda Obit aus Lancaster County. Kathy, good to have you joining us as well. There probably will be some people that'll migrate their way over to the YouTube channel throughout the broadcast. It's just is what it is, but we're glad that those of you that are with us tonight are joining us. Whenever you come in, just let us know where you are joining us from. All right, let's talk about what we got coming up this evening. We have waiting in the green room Taj Magruder. It's going to be a great interview with him. We're going to talk about his new book, In the Day of Trouble. We'll get the whole story about why did he do this? What's this book all about? It's going to be a really, really fascinating conversation. Can't wait to get to that. But as always, we have some news and some things for your Pennsylvania Dutch calendars to get so that you can get out there and experience some Pennsylvania Dutch things. And first thing, every month our shows are brought to us by some local business. This month, shout out to the good people at the Port Clinton Peanut Shop there in southern Schuylkill County. So that is this month's sponsor. If you've never been to the Port Clinton Peanut Shop right there on Route 61, do yourself a favor and drive up to Port Clinton and stop in. It is worth the drive. Absolutely. All right. Stuff for your Pennsylvania Dutch calendar. Here we go. As we've been announcing, our good friend Fred Fritsch out of Kutztown has been doing Pennsylvania Dutch Nights at the Kutztown Beneficial Association, which used to be the Kutztown Fire Company in their social hall. We got a couple coming up. In fact, the 17th, that's this week. Check it out at 6:30 p.m. And then 2 dates in August already, the 7th and the 14th. It's laid back. It's an opportunity for you to go learn some Pennsylvania Dutch, practice some Pennsylvania Dutch, sing in Pennsylvania Dutch, enjoy a meal while you're there because they do have a full kitchen. And if you're a member, you can to have some drinks at the bar there at the Beneficial Association in Kutztown. So check them out. Some opportunities for you. A very important festival is coming up the first full weekend in August, August 8th and 9th. Please make your way to the Antis uh, property there at the Goshenhappen Folk Festival. They are truly a fantastic group of people that put on a fantastic festival. You want to put this on your calendar if you've never been. You want to go. And our good friends, the Shoeflies, will be performing at some point during the festival. Check out their website for more information and to see a whole calendar of what, when things will be happening, all the information of the festival, how much to get in, et cetera, et cetera. Check it out on their website. Just look up Goshenhappen. It's a funny word, but it's a good one to look up. Brigitte, we're just talking about you. Brigitte, hello from Philly. Glad you're joining us. Some other things for your calendar. We have the Pennsylvania German Farm Festival taking place at the historic Dreibelbiss Farm there in Virginsville, or right outside of Virginsville, on Saturday, August the 23rd. There are a lot of things happening that day at the historic farm there. If you've never been, that's another place you really should check out. They do a lot of really cool things there. So that is on August 23rd. Parking $3, but free to get in. And one last thing for your Pennsylvania Dutch calendars to the month of September. September 7th will be a Pennsylvania Dutch worship and luncheon at the good congregation of St. Jacob's Stone Church, which is in Glenville, Pennsylvania. That's York County. I will be giving the message that day. The service will be a traditional Christian service with hymns, readings, and prayers, but it'll be bilingual. Hymns will be in both English and in Pennsylvania Dutch. The main sermon, the message that I'll be delivering, will be in English, but it will be Pennsylvania Dutch themed, and we'll be saying things like the Lord's Prayer, and some of our daily prayers will be in both Pennsylvania Dutch and English, but you don't have to know the language in order to come and participate. And afterwards, they do a free lunch there that is worth the drive to York County. There, last time I was down, they had 15 shoe fly pies on the table, on the dessert table, for you to pick from. And they always do traditional stuffed pig stomach. It is delicious, made by the good folks there at St. Jacob's Stone Church in Glenville, Pennsylvania. Hopefully you can join us on Sunday, September the 7th. The service starts at 10:30 with lunch right afterwards. All right. So those of you that follow along on social media know that I was gone for 10 days recently, and I was over in Germany with my students. I took 18 of my high school students to Germany to visit our partner school. Here's a picture of all of us with our German partners at the city hall in the city of Buchen, where our partner school is. And the mayor, we always meet the mayor. He always officially welcomes us when we come over there every other year. So it was a really nice opportunity to meet the mayor. And I just thought I'd share a couple other quick photos from our trip. For anyone that's been to Germany, in this region of southwestern Germany, you might recognize the town of Miltenberg, right on the Main River. We were there the one day checking out the medieval castle and the medieval streets of the old city. We also, of course, went to the Pfalz. This, my good friend there in the middle, Christoph, is part of the band Boyfeschkönig. They've been very active over there in Germany. They sing in the dialect that's spoken there, very similar to Pennsylvania Dutch. The woman next to him is my chaperone that was with me, my chaperone who chaperoned me. And this picture was taken from the top of the Hambacher Schloss, the Hambacher Castle, just outside of Neustadt an der Weinstraße. And you can look out there on the beautiful Pfalz below us, all the grapevines and all of the vineyards. And one last quick picture for anyone that's been to Germany. A lot of you probably will recognize this photo. We also spent a day on our 10-day trip in the city of Heidelberg, which of course many Americans know, and the famous Heidelberg Castle, which sits up above the city there. So we went up, checked out the castle, and then spent some time downtown. It was a great trip. The kids behaved themselves. I took 18 kids with me and I brought 18 kids home. So that's always a win in my book. All right. Every month we do a salute, a hee-haw style salute to some town in the greater Pennsylvania Dutch community. And given our guest tonight and the story we're going to talk about, I had to take us to Schuylkill County. So I want to give a salute to the good people of Pine Grove in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, founded in 1832 with the closest I could find population was 2,054. But if you've never been to Pine Grove in that region of southern Schuylkill, everybody always thinks Schuylkill County, that's all the coal crackers and it's all the Eastern Europeans. There's no Pennsylvania Dutch up there, but you would be mistaken. There is a large Pennsylvania Dutch communities there in southern Schuylkill County around Pine Grove and Higgins and what they call the Tri-Valley area. Beautiful farm countryside, barns, good Pennsylvania Dutch stock up there. Check it out if you've never been to that part of Schuylkill County. All right. Those are all the news and dates that I have for you guys this month. So without further ado, I'd like to bring into the feed our special guest for this month, Taj Magruder, and we're going to be talking about his book, In the Day of Trouble. Let me remove this and bring Taj in. Hello, Taj.
Hi, Doug. Or should I say Guten Tag?
Hey, that works. Welcome to PA Dutch Live. I'm so excited that you agreed to come on the show, and I can't wait to have this conversation. So I always start off every episode with my guests just to give my audience an opportunity to know. So are you Pennsylvania Dutch? Do you have any Pennsylvania Dutch background?
The only PA Dutch background I can claim is that my mom's stepdad was from Orwigsburg in Schuylkill County. So that's really the only background I have. But I live in Philly. I grew up in the suburbs near Villanova. And I did take German classes in high school. So I'm a little, I can do a Darf ich Schwarze trinken, a Deutsch Vergnügen überall for folks, but that's about it.
Well, that's great. So we're going to be talking about this book that you recently wrote, authored, called In the Day of Trouble, excuse me. And you have some pictures that you're going to share with us and tell this story. But I guess so someone that is not familiar at all with this book, what's the elevator pitch about the book that we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, this book is a mix of true crime and historical fiction. So it's based on an absolutely true story. It tells the story of the 1934 murder of a woman named Susan Mummey, who was a resident of Ringtown in northern Schuylkill County. She was a Pennsylvania Dutch woman. She was a practitioner of powwow or braucherei. And in 1934, she was actually murdered by a member of her community because he thought that she was a witch and had cast a curse on him. And so this story is fairly well known in the Ringtown area, not so much outside of it, but really this is the first time that this story has been put into written writing, the written word.
So before we get into and you're going to tell us we're not going to give the whole book away, but you're going to tell us the history behind the story. But I want to ask you, how did you learn about the story first?
Yeah. So like I said, I live in Philadelphia and, shout out to Brigitte. I saw she's from Philly too. I went to CVS one day. I'd say this was back in 2022 and was on my way checking out. And, these convenience stores, they'll always put stuff by the cash register for you to say, oh, that's not too expensive. Let me throw that in. Yeah. And one of the items was this book called Witches of Pennsylvania by a guy at Duquesne University, Tom White. And in this book, and the title just immediately caught me. I love history. I love Pennsylvania. And in the book, Tom writes about powwow and a lot of these so-called hex murders that happened back around the turn of the 20th century in Pennsylvania. This was the first time I had learned about powwow, although I think in all cultures there's some form of this traditional folk magic and faith healing. But it was the first time I heard about the Pennsylvania Dutch practice of powwow and about this murder. And as I was reading it, it's only a few paragraphs in this book. I was so fascinated by the details of this case. And I was like, I just need to know more about it. So that led me to start researching just for my own fun. And then I sort of, at the end of that, I looked around and was like, well, I don't want all this knowledge to go to waste. No one else has really written a whole book just on this topic, this event. So I figured, why not me? Why not I?
So how did you decide how you wanted to do this? Because you could have said, I'm going to write a historical account and do it like that. But you decided to take the route of writing somewhat historical dramatization or some fiction aspect. How did you come to that decision?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of genealogy and family history. I've been working on that for well over a decade for myself, for my friends. And one thing that I do think is a drawback to genealogy is that so often it can become just a collection of names and dates, and you don't really get a sense of the people themselves, who they were, what their interests were, what were their lives like. And so I didn't want that to happen with this book and telling this story. Susan Mummey, the woman who was murdered, she is not really remembered as much more than just a witch. And so I really wanted to make sure she was remembered in a human way, in a way that really brought her to life. And so I figured, I'd write this in a way that was like historical fiction. So if any of your audience is familiar with books like In Cold Blood or Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, those are all novels about true stories, and that's what my book is like.
Okay. And the other thing before we get into the story, and I told you ahead of time I was going to ask you this. So since you didn't grow up in our culture and you're not necessarily like really deep into our culture, what was it like encountering our culture? I mean, this is just, you encountered one aspect of it, and an aspect that some Pennsylvania Dutch probably, I could honestly say, maybe don't talk a lot about this aspect of our culture. Some of them don't believe in Braucherei and powwow. So what was it like for you to encounter this, what probably at first seemed pretty wild, like, oh my gosh, this isn't, people were actually doing this, or people are still doing this kind of stuff. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, definitely. Growing up in Philly and the Philly suburbs, my early interactions with PA Dutch country, we'd go to Lancaster for something, we'd go to, Shady Maples, something like that. And, we'd always pass what I didn't know were called hex signs, on the way through Dutch country. And, to outsiders, like, oh, these are just, pretty decorations, and you don't really think much more than that. And so as I started digging into this story, and of course the culture too, that behind it, I was just so blown away by how rich this history is of this community, and just the culture there too. And obviously, like I was saying, powwow is not something totally new to any culture. All cultures sort of have that sort of traditional medicine, folk medicine. I remember stories that my grandmother told me about her family in Maryland, where her grandmother, would have all these little tricks and remedies that, weren't part of, modern medicine. And so even though I wasn't necessarily part of the PA Dutch culture, it's still, I was like, okay, I can recognize that in things I've heard.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into the story a little bit, just so everybody gets a good idea of what's going on. This is the book here, In the Day of Trouble, and we'll talk about how you can get your own copy here when we're done with the interview. But Taj sent some images for us to share, or for me to share with you guys, and we'll talk about them. I have them in the order that you sent me. I don't know. I'm going to kind of like turn it over to you, Taj, and you kind of can talk us through things.
Yeah, definitely. So again, Susan Mummy, she was murdered in her house in northern Schuylkill County in a town called Ringtown in 1934. And this is actually a picture of her house as it stood back in 1934. The picture was published in 1975 in Pottsville's newspaper. But this was the house where she was murdered, where she lived and died. The murderer, and I don't know how much to give away about the plot, even though it is a true story. It's not like you can really spoil the Titanic, but the front windows, the shot came through her front window as she was in her living room. So that's a scene of where she lived and the crime scene.
As you did this research, are there any descendants of her family that are still around or still are alive?
So Susan had one daughter who never had children herself. So there are no direct descendants of Susan Mummy today. However, Susan was part of a big Pennsylvania Dutch family. Her family was, her maiden name was Furman. Her husband's name was Mummy. And the Furman family had, I think, around 10 to 15 children. So yeah. So some of Susan's siblings have living descendants, and I was able to connect with one of them actually on ancestry.com.
And did they want to talk to you about this, or is this something they didn't like?
It was something they didn't even know about, which was wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this was a story that even to them was somewhat new. But I was able to get some pictures of the rest of the family, not of Susan herself, but that was a great find.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this here is a picture from the 1934 crime scene of Susan's living room. Again, the shot came through her front window as she was with her niece and a tenant in her house. So Susan, as I said, she was a practitioner of powwow, and she was performing a powwow on her tenant's foot. he had a bunion on his foot, and it had been causing him a lot of pain. So she was addressing his wound, and her niece, who had been orphaned, her niece was holding a lamplight over them as Susan was doing her work, and that's when a bullet came through the front window. And so the arrow points to where she fell.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah. And there, of course, as you can imagine, that is the window where the bullet came through, the hole from the gunshot. There were actually 2 gunshots. The first one that's through that front window was the one that unfortunately ended her life. The murderer also, as he was making his escape, decided to scare the rest of the folks inside from chasing him. So he went around the corner and put another gunshot through another window.
So I noticed this is from the Honolulu Advertiser. So I take it that this story, and you mentioned, and I would imagine some of the people watching the show know this, but this wasn't the only hex-style murder that happened in this time period. There was another really, really big one in the York County region known as the Hex Hollow murder, and that one went national when it got to court and all that. Did the same thing happen to this?
Absolutely. This was front page news across the country. And again, as you can see, I pulled this image from a paper in Hawaii. So you can imagine just, again, how widespread this story became at the time. And to your earlier point, this was not the only powwow related murder at that time. Yeah. One of the better known cases, the one you were referring to, was the murder of Nelson Reimeyer in York County. And that happened in 1928, so about 5-6 years before Susan's murder. And it was very similar circumstances where Nelson, the man who was murdered, he had been a practitioner of powwow, was known in the community as a powwow doctor. And one of his neighbors, a man named John Blymeyer, he believed that he had been cursed. He was suffering a string of misfortunes and thought, well, the only way to cure myself is to kill this guy. Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened with this story, with the Susan Mummy story as well. Okay.
Yep, exactly. And so here is a picture from 1934 from the Associated Press of Albert Shinsky. And this is the murderer. This was Susan's killer. Albert was, he had mentioned earlier, a lot of folks in Schuylkill County are also Eastern European. Albert was the son of Lithuanian immigrants, and he is born in Schuylkill County. And he had actually been a next door neighbor of Susan's. And it was during this time when he lived next to her that his cows had first broken the fence between their properties. And according to him, Susan became irate over that and had scolded him and said something to the effect of I'll get you for this. And it was after that Albert started to have these hallucinations that ultimately led him to believe that Susan had cursed him.
Was he on the? Did they get him relatively quickly, or was he on the run for a long time, or is that spoiling anything from the book? I hope not, but I'm just curious.
People can read the book for the full details, but I will tell you it wasn't too long.
Okay.
It really was only a few days after the murder that they were able to identify that Albert's car had been in the area on the night of Susan's murder. And he did not, according to the reports, he really didn't deny it for very long, maybe the first hour or so, and then sort of became boastful about it. He was proud that he had, killed a witch, according to him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so here you have pictures. Again, this was a huge media sensation in the day. And so you have newspaper pictures of Albert in his prison cell in the Schuylkill County prison in Pottsville. And then next to him, you see 2 of the Schuylkill County detectives, Louis Buono, who is the chief detective. He's the one off to the left. And then one of his deputies, Detective Ferns, who's holding the shotgun that Albert used.
That's great.
Another part of this wild media sensation was that Albert's girlfriend, who had no involvement in the murder, this was really a lone wolf act, but Albert's girlfriend, whose name was Selena, Selena Bernstall, she became such a big figure in this media coverage because she really hammed it up for the cameras. She was really telling them, oh, me and Albert, we're going to get married and I love him so much. And, the poor guy, she knew how to play it up for the reporters back then. And so this picture is from the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer in March 1934. And as you can see, Selena's picture
is bigger than
Albert's picture. Albert's picture is tucked under her picture. And mind you, she's just the uninvolved girlfriend of the murderer. Yeah. And so here's another picture of Selena. Again, you can tell she was really, giving it to the reporters, oh, why don't you take a picture of me looking so upset on this couch? She was quite a figure. Her stories also evolved over the few weeks and months that this story was covered. It started off she said, oh, I make $6 a week at a shirt factory, and that price steadily increased to where she was saying, oh yeah, I make $9 a week. Also, she originally said that I didn't believe Albert and his stories of being cursed. And then it turned into, I had a cousin who was cursed. And then finally she was saying, even I had visions of Albert coming to me at night. And so she was quite a character.
And all of that, those types of anecdotes that you just shared, those were all found in various newspaper stories. Is that how you came? Okay. It's not like you had like a testimony from her that was ever like typed up or anything like that. It was just, I could just imagine her every time a different reporter wanted to talk to her. It's like straight out of the movie Chicago, right? It just keeps getting crazier.
It just got crazier. Yeah, so with this case, there are very little surviving legal documents related to this case. So a lot of my research was based in old newspaper articles from the time.
Okay.
And so here, as I mentioned earlier, I was able to connect with one of the descendants of Susan's siblings. Again, she came from a very big family. And so I haven't been able to find any pictures of Susan herself. But this picture I got from a lovely woman on Ancestry.com. And it's a picture of Susan's sister, Matilda, or Tilly, as they called her. So it gives you an idea of what Susan herself may have looked like. Susan was 63 when she was killed. So probably about around this time.
Yeah. And you said that, was this the person that you got connected to get this photo from? This was someone that didn't know the story, or they did know the story?
She didn't know the story.
So crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I think I understand from the sense of like, and the one thing, I don't know if you've gotten this from talking to people now and having done all this research, as someone who's Pennsylvania Dutch myself, and I grew up in both sides of my mom's family and my dad's family, we never really talked much at all about powwow, braucherei. In fact, my maternal grandmother, often I asked her one time about it, and she just said, it's a bunch of hooey, was always her quote about it. So I think, and I don't know where, I just know that that's what, that's how it was treated in our family. But I when I've read stuff since then, now being older and looking at like stories like this, and you see how the newspaper plays it, about hex, using these words, and I could see, I think my interpretation would be, if I was living back then and I was a Pennsylvania Dutch person, and now the whole nation has their eyes fixated on my people, on my culture, and the way it's being played up is that, oh, here are these crazy Pennsylvania Dutch people who still believe in witches and black magic, and it's the 1900s, and I think some families really wanted to forget about all of this stuff to a certain extent, or at least downplay it, maybe. I mean, how would you think if someone in your family's like, oh, don't forget your grandmother was a witch? It's like, I think that would be hard for some families to maybe why they would not want to perpetuate that story. Maybe. I don't know. That's just my take.
Yeah, I absolutely think you're right. And there are so many factors in this. I think one, the embarrassment that I think a lot of Pennsylvanians, including those in the PA Dutch community, felt that, again, this wasn't the only powwow related murder. Again, the Nelson Reinmeyer murder had happened just a few years earlier. So a lot of folks in Pennsylvania, I think, felt embarrassment that, like, oh man, we don't want to be viewed as these sort of, medieval mentality folks.
Right.
What was also true, I mean, also in families, not very pleasant to talk about murder, especially of a loved one at the dinner table. But Susan herself had some strained relationships within her family too. She fought with her brother-in-law. She had another sister, Missouri, who was actually Matilda's twin. She had fought with her brother-in-law over her father's property for truly 30 years. Over this property after her father had passed, to the point where she was squatting in the house. Her brother-in-law set it on fire, and then she set up a tent on the ashes. So Susan had such a full life even before her murder that I also wanted to include in the book.
That's crazy. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And so here you have a picture of Albert in 1962. So, 30 plus years after the murder. At this point, he's a grown man, an older man, close to Susan's age when she had died. And so Albert, after he had confessed to killing Susan, he was actually not tried for the murder because a panel of doctors found him mentally insane and unfit to stand trial. And so he spent 40 years altogether in a mental asylum. I think he was shipped up to Wayne County, Pennsylvania, near Scranton. And so he fought for like 40 years to get himself freed. So this is a picture from one of these hearings in 1962 as he's being escorted to the courthouse.
So did he ever get to marry his fiancée that was all over the newspapers?
He did not. A few years after Albert was committed to this asylum, Selena found herself a new guy. Yeah. I found an interview that she did from, I think it was the 1980s. Selena lived a long life. She lived into her 80s and I think passed away in the early 2000s. She gave a wild interview about her husband, who she met at a dance, and they were friends of Frankie Valli and all, I don't think she changed one bit.
Okay.
Another part of this just wild story of all the ups and downs, very conveniently, right after Albert was finally released from the asylum, he was found to be mentally competent to stand trial. But at that point, all the key witnesses in the case, even the detective and DA who worked on the case, had passed away. So the DA at that time in 1976 decided to drop the charges. And so Albert was free to go. And it just so happens right after he gets released, Susan's house burns down. The house that had been empty for decades at that point. It just so happened that at that same time, her house burns down. And so this is a picture of the rubble.
Right.
And so this is that same spot today. This was from a few years ago. I went to visit the spot where Susan's house once stood. And, as you can see today, it's pretty much a grassy stretch of land, but there is a little bit of the foundation still showing. So a man named, his name is escaping me. I forget. But a man had bought Susan's house, abandoned house. He was the owner when it was burned down. I was able to find his daughter, Patty. Her name is Patty Olszewski. She's a lovely, lovely woman. And she still lives on this property. She lives right across the street. And when I reached out to her to be like, hey, I'm writing this book on an incident that happened on your property, she knew all about it. Okay. She knew about the story. She has a bunch of old newspaper clippings herself. And she was telling me about all the stress her dad had to deal with the graffiti at the house. And even Patty to this day is dealing with some tricksters. Sometimes she'll find pointy witch shoes left around her property. She said that sometimes people have spray painted pentagrams around it too. So in this area, people still remember it.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. Well, Taj, this has been, Absolutely fascinating story. So everyone, there's the book, In the Day of Trouble, a novel by Taj Magruder. Taj, where's the best place for people to get this? Or what do you suggest?
So I'm published through a PA-based publisher known as Sunbury Press. And it's actually run by a Pennsylvania Dutch guy named Lawrence Knorr, I should say. He actually helped me add in a few PA Dutch references throughout the book. So you can get it on Sunbury Press, the website. You can also get it through Amazon too. I think it might actually get to you quicker through Amazon, but Amazon, Sunbury Press, you can get it there.
So shout out to Sunbury Press. They do great stuff, and they have a lot of other great Pennsylvania Dutch themed books on their website. So definitely throw them the bone if you want to purchase the book. I mean, Amazon if you have to. Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money, but Sunbury Press does.
Exactly.
So I mean, Taj, I'm really thankful that you came on to share this story. To have a couple people saying, like Dolly saying, and she's as Pennsylvania Dutch as they come. First I'm hearing of this. Thank Taj. Can't wait to get your book. That's great. Oh, and KN says I'm reading it now halfway through. There you go. I just want to say, like, I mean, these are the types of stories that sometimes I shudder a little bit because it's like it brings up these the Dutch and their hexes and they believe in witchcraft, but it is absolutely a fact that Braucherei and powwow has been a part of our culture for as long as we've been in the United States. And there's been a lot of scholarly work done about this topic of our culture. I've had guests on the show over the years, Patrick Dunmoyer, of course, in Kutztown, who's done seminal work on this aspect of our culture. It's real. I think the days of us just avoiding it and suppressing it and saying, "Oh no, that's crazy," those days are past. There's enough evidence now and documentation that for generations some aspect of our culture has been practicing these beliefs. Maybe not to the point of we're turning and trying to kill the person that we think has put a hex on them, but we do have evidence that has happened too in our history, of course. With Taj shares this story from Ringtown and, of course, the famous Rhymeyer killing in York County. I mean, these are aspects of our history that we can't avoid. We should be telling them. And I just want to give you a huge shout out for taking a concept and a story that was foreign to you as well, and turning it into being able to tell the story. And I haven't read the book yet, but I will be reading it. I'm sure that it gives all of the characters in this story an opportunity to have a voice, specifically Susan, I'm sure, more than anybody else.
Definitely. Yeah. And that was really my overarching goal. Again, as an outsider to this, I found learning about powwow to really increase my admiration for the Pennsylvania Dutch and just appreciate this like deeper, richer culture that I hadn't known before, and to learn about these folks who were involved and the amazing lives they led. Again, this book covers not just the murder, but Susan's life well before that. So it really deepened my appreciation of the PA Dutch community. And that's why I had to reach out to you, Doug, to see if you wanted to talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thanks so much. And so is there an idea for a second book coming, or what do you think?
There actually is. I don't want to overpromise too much, but
sure.
I think I may have found a niche in 1930s Pennsylvania murders, because there's another one that caught my attention, also with connections to powwow in the PA Dutch community. It was a murder that happened in Philadelphia, in the Germantown neighborhood in 1932. With a man who was found with very strange, unexplained markings on his face. He is originally from Berks County. That's where he had grown up. He was Pennsylvania Dutch himself, but was living in Philadelphia. And to this day, it's an unsolved murder.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I think that might be my next one.
Well, I'm already interested in reading that. It's a Berks County boy here, born and raised. So, well, I wish you all the best with the research involved. I know it's not easy to sit down and write a book. I've done it. It takes time. It takes to do it right. It takes time, and you've done the work for that first one. I'm sure you're gonna be fine. You know what you're doing now. And I wish you all the best with that. And then as soon as it's done and published, you shoot me a message, and then we'll get you back on the show, and we'll talk all about that one, because I'm already fascinated to learn that story. Absolutely, just the way you described it, Taj.
Well, you got it. I will be back.
Thanks, Taj, so much. We'll get you some more book sales here. That's for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Hey, if anybody wants to connect with you, are you on social media? Do you suggest anything like that if people want to reach out?
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I have a website tajmagruder.com, and there is a contact form on there. You can just throw in a comment. Hate mail even, send it my way. I'll read it.
Future story opportunities maybe too.
Yeah,
if you know of a hex murder from the 1920s or 30s, reach out to Taj.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, Taj, coming on the show to talk about this awesome book. And I look forward to what you produce in the future for sure.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Well, people, there you go. In the Day of Trouble by Taj Magruder. Check out his website, tajmagruder.com. And as he said, you can purchase it on Amazon if you want to support Jeff Bezos. However, I would recommend going through the Sunbury Press's website and supporting that small business. They do great work there. Sounds like an awesome story. And, we've talked about Braucherei and Hexerei and all this stuff before, and it is part of our story. Some of us maybe don't want to admit it, or maybe we just want to turn a blind eye to it, but it's part of our story. It is. You can't tell the Pennsylvania Dutch story in America without at least acknowledging that that is a part of it. And what I've always found interesting about it, and maybe you guys out there watching will agree with me, is the fact that some of these healing practices and traditions that are still being done by the Pennsylvania Dutch here in Pennsylvania are way older than any of us realize. We're talking pre-Christian Europe in some cases. In other cases, back to the Middle Ages. These ideas, these practices that our immigrant forefathers and foremothers brought over hundreds of years ago to America, these were old, and now they're even older, and they're still being practiced by people here in the Pennsylvania community. That's crazy, and not crazy like crazy. That's crazy cool, in my opinion. So just want to give a shout out, talk a little bit about that. I was thinking about that as we were talking about this book and these stories that we have and that we have to share. All right. So get your copy of In the Day of Trouble, my dear friends. Order it now. All right. Our Pennsylvania Dutch for this month, it is July, and I wanted to go. We've done a lot of poetry by Solli Holsbock. I like Solli. He does really great work. And he had a poem written called Viert Tschulei, which translates into the 4th of July, which we just celebrated 2 weeks ago. I have the Pennsylvania Dutch on the left and the English on the right. Follow whichever side you want to follow. I'm going to read the Pennsylvania Dutch, though. Here we go. Viert Tschulei by Solli Holsbock. Uf Viert Tschulei kom op blendi light. Uf alle Weg bei für een große Zeit. Und es Pulver kracht wie Donner und Blitz und senkt den mancher Seehosse Sitz. Es ist ein Lärm und Jagd vor Dauerslicht und dadurch die Nacht knallt's noch gedicht. Und die Luft ist voll im schier aller Platz mit der Haut und Woll von der Patriots. Well, there we go. Nice little poem. Maybe you had fireworks at your house on the 4th of July. The community where I live set off quite a lot. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful display. All right. So this month we got a song for you guys, as we do every month. And we're going to go to our good friend, the Blohbariyer, who was just a guest on the show 2 months ago, I believe. And we had been advertising that he was going to be doing a tour with a German band called the Pälzer Krischer, who were coming from the Palatine region of Germany, the region where a lot of our ancestors came from. And they did a 4-day tour here in the United States with Scott, with the Blohbariyer. And some people were lucky enough or nice enough that they shot some videos of the concert, and I want to share one of these live ones with you right now. So this is from their concert in Zionsville, and this is one of Scott's original songs, Faasnacht, which of course Faasnacht is, that it's the time period right before Ash Wednesday when we eat our donuts and all that stuff. So this is his song performing with the band Pälzer Krischer, direct from Germany. I'm going to pull myself out. Enjoy.
Was ist der alles auf was gemacht? Ich hab bei dir den Spielmanngeber und hab getanzt die ganze Nacht. Es ist die längste Nacht vom Jahr, es ist der ganze Tag verschnappt. Schöne News in meinem Ohr und Speis und Getränk ist jede Nacht.
Faasnacht verschoben und niemand da Brust oder keiner. Und tanz mit mir morgen, mal schön Mädel sein. Du mal schön Mädel sein. Faasnachtzeit, Faasnachtsruf, der ganze Tag ist solange das Leben will alle erst recht. Nicht näher, oder du noch nicht näher, und du findest das ganze Jahr keine Gatti, und da wird du auch nicht happy. Von Faasnacht beschlofen, niemand da Brust oder keiner, und tanz mit mir morgen, du warst schön Mädel sein, du warst schön Mädel sein. Gerade auf Lichtig Leben, gerade auf Faschnacht, auf vergiss die Spielmann, über getanzt die ganze Nacht.
Well, there we go, people. How was that for you? Nice, straight out of Zionsville, Pennsylvania. Thanks, Scott, the Blohbariyer, and his crew there with the Pälzer Krischer. Good stuff. Really, really good stuff. All right. We're almost to the end for this month, but throw a couple things at you yet, guys, before we close up shop. There were some people that joined a little late, and I want to give them a quick shout out. Where were we here? Corey says, Good Numi Dog from Canada. Well, hello. Good afternoon to you, Corey. Thanks for joining us. Henry Laskowski, Gouda Dog. Glad to finally see one of these live. Dutchie from Dauphin County here. Well, glad that you are joining us. And Derek Keller, he joins us almost every month. Gouda Obit und Be Bisht Aliapa von Windgap. Hey, glad to have you. And there's not as many people joining us tonight. I bet a lot of people on vacation, maybe, or maybe that whole Facebook debacle here that couldn't get us. But don't worry. Small but mighty, right? Tonight, small but mighty. Well, dear friends, you know, if you have a birthday coming up, or we got the holiday, I mean, I know it's only July, but I was seeing things on Facebook earlier today about only 6 months till Christmas, all that kind of talk. Well, it's already talking. Well, if you want to get a very unique gift for someone and you want it to be Pennsylvania Dutch themed, check out our store, zazzle.com/PA Dutch 101, where we have tons of Pennsylvania Dutch themed merchandise. And let me share some with you. Like, you could get a coffee cup that says Ich bin Deutsch, or you could get a shirt that says PA Dutch Mädel, PA Dutch girl, for those who don't speak. There's tons of stuff on there. Last month, I showed you that we have some brand new clothes for babies and toddlers. We got the Schnickel Fritz onesie and my Schlabbertuch for the for the bib. And a friend of the show's sent me this picture today of his granddaughter wearing her Schnickel Fritz onesie, walking up the road confidently, because a Schnickel Fritz is always confident, right? So these do make great gifts. So please check out our website. T-shirts, buttons, magnets, stickers, hoodies. You can get it all. Check it out at zazzle.com/PA Dutch 101. If you like what we're doing here on the show and on the channel, and you'd like to financially support us, you can do that. You have two different ways. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Doug Mainford, or you can become a monthly patron for as little as $1 a month at our Patreon page. Just go to patreon.com/PA Dutch 101. You can check all those things out. Any money donated goes to the upkeep of the channel, puts gas in the Subaru so I can drive down to York to do that Pennsylvania Dutch service, things like that. We're not blowing it on lottery tickets or anything like that, dear friends. And I do want to give a shout out to some people that have recently donated: Gary and Deanna Weaver, Glenn Ritter, Nathan Sager, Seth Moog, Devin Miller, Norman Jung, Grunsal Lodge number 10, Norman Berger, David Hunsinger, Dolly Moyer, Gary Johansson, Gail Spilsbury, Derek Deeds, and Tim Dedman. Thank you for your financial support. Dear friends, mark your calendar. In less than a month, we'll be back with our August episode of PA Dutch Live on the 13th, Wednesday, the 13th of August at 6 p.m. Till then, hopefully this whole Facebook streaming thing will be worked out and I'll be able to stream to Facebook again. But anyway, next month we'll be welcoming on Dr. Timothy Grieve Carlson. And he recently wrote a book about the one and only Johannes Kelpius. Now, if that name, you've never heard that name before, you're in for a real treat next month. Johannes Kelpius is this, I don't even know how to explain it. It's a crazy story, and it's a crazy cool story. The Hermit of the Wissahickon. We're going way back into the 1700s in the greater Germantown, Philadelphia region for this story. But many of you who are descendants of those early Pennsylvania Dutch to come to these shores came through Philadelphia, and there's a chance they might have interacted or passed by the house and cave of Johannes Kelpius. That's all I'm going to say. But Dr. Carlson, Grieve Carlson, will be giving us that talk next month. We're going to go way back in time to the 1700s and learn about the Johannes Kelpius. It's going to be a great show. So please mark your calendars, dear friends. It's going to be good. Between now and then, of course, follow along on all we're doing on our social media feeds. Of course, stay with the YouTube channel. Every Friday is a Pennsylvania Dutch Word of the Week. We do a version of it all in English. And then we also do it, that same version, all in Pennsylvania Dutch. So for those of you that are learning the language or practicing the language, or you already speak it and you just want to hear some Pennsylvania Dutch, every Friday has a Pennsylvania Dutch Word of the Week. But then you can also follow along on Instagram, on Facebook, on X. Just always search for @PADutch101. Every Monday, we do our meme Moondog, so a meme of the week, Pennsylvania Dutch themed. And we have lots of other things that we're posting there on all those sites. So please follow along, join the conversation, join the celebration of our Pennsylvania Dutch heritage and our culture and our story. And until next month, dear friends, when I'll be back on the 13th with you. But between now and then, check us out on social media, of course. But till next month, dear friends, enjoy the rest of July and the beginning of August. Try and stay cool to the best of your abilities and dry. That's been kind of tough here in Pennsylvania recently. And maybe I'll see you at one of those events that we talked about for our calendars. Hopefully I will. If not, we'll see you in a month here again on PA Dutch Live. But till then, dear friends, keep practicing your Pennsylvania Dutch and Max gut.
Max gut zu dir, Max gut zu dir, Max gut zu dir für now. Unsere Zeit ist all und so es ist Max gut für now. Hoff wieder mit dir zu sein. Hoff, du bringst zurück ein Freund. Max gut zu dir, Max gut zu dir, Max gut zu dir für now. Unsere Zeit ist all und so es ist Max gut für now. Hoff wieder mit dir zu sein. Hoff, du bringst zurück ein Freund. Und so Max gut. Max gut, lieber Freund, Max gut.